I knew close to nothing about American culture when I first came here. I didn't even speak the language. I didn't even learn the language before I came here. It was just, I came and I was just thrown into school. Middle school was probably, that's when people start kind of forming, thinking deeper. So that's when people start getting a little racist, or people start developing ideas about Asians.
So my parents immigrated here in 1997. I was born in 1998, and they have stayed in Tucson their entire lives. So I was born and raised here. I think not having someone to relate to kind of makes you feel alone at times. And it's nice to be able to relate and almost share your culture with others or talk about it. If someone had a similar upbringing as you, it'd be nice, but since there wasn't a prevalent Asian community, so it just made me feel alone sometimes.
I'm Filipino-Polish, 50-50. My dad is 100% Polish and my mom is 100% Filipino. My mom was born in Manila, Philippines, and when she was about 7 years old, she immigrated from there to the United States. So growing up, despite understanding that I was a Filipino-American, I was fascinated with American culture, so I modeled my hair after it, I modeled my sense of fashion after it, I modeled everything after it. During those times, I definitely knew I was Filipino, but it was never something I explored.
I remember being pushed down in the hallways, and because I was a really skinny, nerdy, weird kid, I couldn't do anything to fight back. I was scared to fight back. It comes into standards of masculinity and standards of beauty as well, because in America, the action heroes are masculine. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. They're big, buff guys. So, when you go into the business world, everything, your physique, I guess, does matter, how tall you are. And Asians tend to be shorter and skinnier and, thinner in frame.
I don't know, I guess because I hated all the physical features about myself. My eyes are too small because people would point that out, or my lips are too big. I'm like, why do I look the way I look? It's because my parents, and then I started to present them for the wrong reasons, and I became ashamed to even speak my language. I was almost tired of being Asian. So a few years back, I believe it was the summer of 2018, I went back to Vietnam because my mom really just wanted to see her mom, so my grandma. I thought Vietnam was a place that I could belong. I don't know, I didn't realize that being an American was such a factor of me that made me stand out, but in a negative manner. Yeah, it feels very confusing, honestly, because when you go to Vietnam, you're too American, and then when you're here, people are like, oh, you're too Asian for certain things. You're stuck in this weird middle ground. Where do you belong?
So my grandmother lived with us in our household until I was about 6 years old. She moved over to our house to kind of help my parents take care of the kids. And when she left, I definitely lost kind of those old roots. And when I was a kid, there was this dish that she made called babinka, which was basically a rice cake that you make with a little bit of coconut milk, rice, and brown sugar. And she made it really, really well. It was just this delicious, sweet dessert that I loved as a kid, and she could seemingly make it out of nowhere at any time, and she always made it perfect. So on this day around Christmas, when we went to go see my grandmother when she was fading, we tried to record the recipe. We tried to get her to write down, how does she make it, how long does she cook it for, what's her secret, and we got her to write stuff down. And we recorded it, but we tried to reproduce the dish, and we haven't been able to do it as well since. It was at that moment that I guess I realized that it wasn't just the dish that was going, it was an entire generation of voices and ancestors that had carried on these roots from the Philippines that I just basically had no idea existed. And I would say I felt pretty bad about it. I would say I felt very alienated from the Philippines because I grew up existing in a culture that I otherwise wouldn't have known wasn't really my culture. It was the American culture. It was the American ideal. So I would say I definitely felt asleep, and that I really had to kind of wake up.
I guess that's where college came in. There was the Vietnamese Student Association. I happened to see them during like a club fair, and I talked to one of the e-board members. He's like, "Oh, the meeting's at this time." I was like, "Okay, cool." I decided just to check it out, and I was like, "Okay, there's people who are actually like me." Like how I joined the pageant was with the pageant chairs of the club. They asked me to join it, and I made such a great group of friends there too. And the pageant really helped me push outside of my comfort zone. Like I learned how to do a traditional Vietnamese dance. I mean, not well, but I did it. I don't know. That pageant really just taught me how to be more confident about myself and be proud of my culture and to see kind of the beauty of it. A little bit cliche, but I remember I felt really beautiful that day.
I think since I've started playing football and I've gotten bigger and gained more muscle, I don't recall any moment where people have said anything harmful or racist to me anymore. And I think that just goes to show how people do respect your image of masculinity as a man. If the bigger you are, nobody's gonna mess with you. I still kept my Japanese side because in my household, it was a Japanese only policy. So I've never spoken to my parents or my siblings in English ever. The culture is still there and I still feel very Japanese. But on the other hand, I feel as red-blooded as American as it gets. I played football and I like steak and cheeseburgers. So I don't know if it makes sense, but I do feel like I am equally both.
I'm spending a lot more time with my mom to try and understand how she feels about having lost her culture and the things that we can do together to try and go back to our culture and discover it again. Recently, we've been talking about trying to go to the Philippines again because she has family that she remembers back there.
Like what I do here now, I would say like I always try to take the opportunity to wear an aoyai. Now I always try to ask my mom to tell me more about her history, like her story. And I really wish I could have told myself back then that you don't have to be embarrassed, you should embrace it, you should practice Vietnamese, learn how to write it, and read it.
Everybody should be proud of their ethnic differences, and that everybody should totally be willing to flaunt it and be willing to celebrate it and be able to say, this is who I am and this is where I come from.
What is that?
Crazy.
In America, in the individualist country, that uniqueness really makes you stand out. It helps you get the attention you need to get a job, to get friends, to get a girlfriend.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I'm Shun.
And I'm Mimi.
Yes, it may be difficult to fit in being different, but there is beauty within your culture, and you should learn and see for yourself how beautiful it can be.
The Asian wave is here, it's coming, and it's gonna continue to grow. So I would recommend keeping it.